Hey guys, I'm Donna from Talk Feel Change, and I quickly want to explain this idea that I think explains pretty well why a lot of us stay in an unhappy relationship, and I think it even explains why a lot of us continue to do something that isn't making us happy. It's called the sunk cost fallacy. Okay, so what is the sunk cost fallacy? Let me take you through it by asking you to imagine something. So imagine you've just bought a ski trip that was $100, okay? And it's a great ski trip, but then you go online and you find a much better ski trip, which is only $50. And so imagine you buy that one too, lucky you. And then later you find out that both ski trips are in different countries and at the same time. So now you have to make a decision about which ski trip you want to do. Which one do you choose? So Arx and Bloomer conducted the study with a number of participants in 1985. And surprisingly, they found that over half the participants chose to go on the more expensive ski trip, even though they were aware that the cheaper ski trip, which they had also bought, was better. So why did they choose this? It's because the perceived loss of $100 compared to $50 was much greater. So in the participants' minds, they had already sunk $100 as opposed to $50. And so that's why they went with the more expensive choice, because the potential loss on that one was higher. With the sunk cost fallacy, we learned that people's brains are pretty much hardwired to focus on potential losses rather than potential gains. We don't treat potential gains and losses equally. We will generally concentrate more on what we could lose and go with a decision based on that. And we do this all the time in our lives, sometimes with really small things and sometimes with larger things. Like, I know I often will continue to read a book to the end, even if I'm really not enjoying it, even if about a third of the way in, I realized, this book is not what I thought it was. Just because of the fact that I actually spent money on it and sunk a cost into it, I will probably end up reading that book to the end. And on a much larger scale, I know of so many people who have continued to study and then go into the working field of a subject that they actually really despise, just because they spent a year studying it and didn't want to feel like they had lost that year. They didn't want to lose that sunk cost. And we can relate this to relationships as well. A lot of the time, people will stay in a relationship even though it's proving to be really deeply unhappy and an unfulfilling relationship. And if you ask the person why they stay, they might tell you that it's because they don't want to feel like they've wasted however many years on this relationship. And they might stay even though they're aware that it's not a good relationship for them, but it seems better in their mind than having wasted the time. Now, please don't get me wrong, I'm all about sticking it out. I am a couples therapist after all. But my point that I'm trying to get at is not to stay only because you're afraid of the loss that might occur if you leave. If you're staying solely for the reason that you've sunk a lot of time into this relationship, imagine how many years and years in the future you will be sinking into this same unhappy relationship. And so if you can identify with being in this relationship, or if you know of someone else who's in a relationship like this, then they pretty much have three options at this point. Number one, they can continue to stay in the relationship as things are. Number two, they can break up. Number three, they can try to change the relationship. And there is no blanket solution to apply to all relationships, but it will probably be something around having a lot of honest conversations with your partner, maybe reading relationship books or watching vlogs or going to therapy. I know that matters of the heart are not simple and that life is really messy, but just take a minute and reflect on whether you or someone you know has been falling prey to the sunk cost fallacy, and see if there's anything that you can do about it. Cheers.